thought we were there. All right. Welcome back, YouTubers. This is In the Northwest Native News. I'm your host, Jeff Ferguson, and we have
I'm
Margo's
your
back.
Margo
right.
Hill.
Yeah, so we had four mornings without you. It just was not the same.
Hey, a girl's got to get away, take a little bit of a walkabout, and have some chick time by the pool, by the ocean. And so I am back and recharged and ready to bring the news.
All right. Well, you look very nice.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
well coordinated.
You look sharp too. Holy smokes.
Thank you.
All right.
Well, so hopefully, I think we got everything going here. We got a few stories. We're just going to kind of try to keep things moving along this morning. If this is your first time here joining us, we'd like to thank you. We're covering news and events that affect the 11 tribes of the inland Northwest, as far east as the Blackfeet, down south to the Umatilla, Warm Springs, up north to the Kootenai and the Kalispels, and west to the Colvilles with the Yakamas, Perce, Coeur d'Alene, and Spokane. Kind of everybody in between. I think that's all of them.
Yes.
So anyhow, we cover news on a local, regional, and national level. And really this is more just of a kind of discussion and raising awareness to you. We're not... we don't actually report this stuff. We just kind of look around and find some of the most interesting things to us anyhow, and things that you may or may not have been able to see, through your feeds and so forth, and kind of pass them on to you. Try to keep the discussion going on some of the more important issues, of course, and try to hold accountable some of the people in our administration, and make sure that they're doing the right things. But one thing we do not and have not covered is intertribal politics. Try to stay away from that. So
yeah.
Anyhow,
shout out to Gigi Kaiai. I love her page. She always has great stuff out of Montana, and lots of stories. So I always check her page. She has lots of good stories.
Yeah, it's interesting. With all, you can have a lot of friends on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, or people following you, or you're following people very similar. You and I have like several hundred shared friends, the same friends, and then yet our feeds still pop up different. They show different things. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of interesting how that works. But yeah. Anyhow, yeah.
And we just try to find the most interesting news, local, regional, and sometimes national, things that are happening, and things that we know our community's interested in.
Yeah, and so once again, like to thank you for joining us. This is episode number 39. While you were gone, we hit 500 subscribers to our YouTube channel, so that's pretty good.
And just a big thank you to Irv. It's really hard to do, to get up and do this morning show, to have all the stories ready, to key the videos and everything, and it's hard to do alone. So we really appreciate Irv Schuler coming out and covering for me. It's just nice to have somebody that's willing to get up and drive to someone else's place and be here in the studios.
Yeah. Shout out to Irv, man. Thanks for hanging in.
Thanks, Irv. I had a great vacation and you helped make that possible.
Yeah. All right. With that being said, Margo has the very first story today. What do you got, Margo?
So we want to tell everyone, be sure and register for the MMIW 5K. It's going to be May 5th, 10 to 1. There's both an in-live person and also a virtual aspect of this 5K run. So it's getting to be spring. We need to get out, get moving. But we want you to register for the live event portion of the race. It's at the Two Rivers Loop. It's the beautiful confluence of the Spokane and Columbia River. They'll meet there, be there, register and get there at 10 a.m. to 1, in-person run only. And then the virtual run is all day, so you can register and do the virtual run at your convenience. There's going to be snacks and refreshments. There's going to be a mask up and sanitizer station, and information booths. So really come out, register. This is going to be a great event. We have some shirts, and we want to make sure everybody get registered so Krista Colvin can make sure and order the right number. So if you have any questions, we'll leave the links so you can get registered.
Yeah, they'll be in the comment section below. if you have any questions or comments while we're doing our live feed here, feel free to post them, and we'll try to do our best to get to them. Yeah.
And I was just going to say, you know, Jeff, this is just an example of one of the events that we have to bring awareness to murdered missing Indigenous women and men and young people. You know, we have people go missing all the time, and we have tribal liaisons. I was speaking on the phone over the weekend with Patty Ghosh, and also Dawn Pullen is a tribal liaison. We have cops out there looking for our people, and we're narrowing it down to the folks that are actually missing. And so an event that brings awareness is really, really important because people are listening to us. Legislators know our issues, governors, and a Washington State Patrol. So we made progress.
And not only that, we are getting recognition on a national level. I heard that we had some other states that were listening to kind of things happening up here in Washington.
Yeah, you know, we sometimes complain about our state, but Washington State is a national leader when it comes to state-tribal relations. We are the only one in the country that has a Centennial Accord. You know, as we've mentioned before back in the day, tribal leaders Joe Del Cruz from the Quinault Nation, Mel Tenasket from the Colville tribe, and Ron Allen from the Squaxin Island.
Jamestown
Squam. Ooh, sorry. Nobody tell Ron. Holy cow. Holy stama. Jamestown. Sorry, I've been on vacation in the sunshine, so my brain's a little cooked. But we had leaders that wrote down policy steps that really made sense. Wouldn't it be nice, you know, Mel Tenasket said, what about if we did this? And so they recorded this in the Centennial Accord. The state changed a few words, but essentially the governor and all the state agencies meet with tribal leaders once a year and talk about all the most important issues to Indian country. And so we have this model in Washington State. Other states don't. Idaho and the other states, Oregon, ours is the most kind of effective model. And so states like, when it comes to murdered missing Indigenous women, we have the ear of the governor, of the state agencies like Washington State Patrol, and it's a model. And just recently, Wisconsin and Oklahoma reached out to the tribal liaisons here in Washington State to see how it works. How are you working so effectively with tribes?
Yeah, and so what she's talking about is a Centennial Accord, where the governor agrees to meet annually with all 29 tribes, all 29 tribal leaders, and listen to current issues facing Indian country in Washington State. And that's big when you have that amount of tribes that are, and the governor has their they have the governor's full attention. So that's kind of really super cool. So anyhow, we better keep moving. The next story that we have is just a quick announcement. This is Hope Mountain. Hope Mountain has a grant opportunity. The Hope Mountain invests in rural and tribal citizen leaders who are improving education, ecological health, and economic development. So they have a grant opportunity. Connecting with our homelands is a grant opportunity specifically for Indigenous organizations and schools that want to bring youth and elders to a national park to share Indigenous knowledge, cultural heritage, and traditions. These funds are made possible by National Park Service. A limited number of travel grants up to $2,500 are available to Indian tribes, Alaskan Natives, and Native Hawaiian organizations located in the United States. 2,500 bones. That buys a lot of gas. That's like, 800 gallons of gas. So if you pack the bologna,
or load up that tribal van.
Or if you're like me, full of bologna. So yeah, that's pretty neat grant opportunity. Hope Mountain got that going for the national parks to bring some youth out, get them out and about. That's pretty cool. Pretty exciting.
And so a little secret word for our listeners. If you go to a national park and you tell them that you're tribal, maybe show them your ID and tell them that you're there for spiritual reasons, they won't charge you.
Right? Yeah, I've used that a few times.
Well,
But it was a long time before I knew that. I wish you'd have told me that years ago.
sorry.
You'd have saved me a ton of money.
Yeah, because, these are our homelands. And so when we go up, and, I've taken my children to a number of national parks, not as many as I would like, right? But, if you say that you're there for spiritual reasons, because I think I said educational purposes, because I'm an education freak, but if you specifically let them know, they will not charge you, because these are our homelands and they're our national parks.
You know where I found that out? I found that out over at Olympic National Park. I was going up to Hurricane Ridge, and I thought I'd give it a whirl and try it out, and it worked. And it was pretty neat. So anyhow, we better keep moving. We have this story here. We're hiring. This is the I'll let you tell them.
The National Native American Boarding School Healing Coalition. Come work with the NABs. It has several opportunities for qualified individuals who are passionate about boarding school healing. So there's job postings. They're hiring. We'll leave the link. We'll leave the link in the comments below. But many of our grandparents and parents were in boarding schools, and it caused trauma for many years. And so this organization really does some good work to try to help tribal people heal. Yeah. So job opportunities.
Yeah. All right. So moving right along, we have the very first ever. I had never seen anything. Well, I guess if it's the first ever. This is brought to us by the One Heart Native American Arts and Film Festival Facebook page. First ever Tlingit Opera to be held Wednesday, March 24th. This came out in Juneau, Alaska. See Alaska Heritage Institute is partnering with Juneau's Perseverance Theater to write and produce the first Tlingit opera in recorded history. This original opera will focus on stories from the Tlingit Russian War in Alaska, waged in 1802 and 1804, and be based on historical facts and oral traditions as told from the Tlingit perspective. The opera, currently untitled, is being written by composer Ed Littlefield and the Tlingit librettist. How do you pronounce that? Librettist?
Okay.
I guess. Vera Starbert. The partners will offer the first of a series of workshops in April for Indigenous actors and singers to prepare them to perform in the language. Auditions for the full opera production will be held at a later date. The project began in December 2020 and is being developed over a multi-year period. So you can still check this out. We'll leave the links in the comment section below. I had never heard of anything like this. This is really cool, a step in the right direction. These guys up in Alaska, when it comes to performing arts, are cutting edge.
Holy cow. I lived in London for a while, and we would do theater and opera and all that kind of stuff, and it's just not my thing. But if it's Tlingit and it's telling our stories, I might check that out.
Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. So we better keep moving. We are halfway through our time.
Okay.
Love your Columbia River.
Yeah, so coming up on April 1st, this is no April Fool's joke, Love Your Columbia River webinar. It'll be at 6 p.m. So it's Thursday. They're going to be joined by the Native American Resource, the NDRDC Defenders of Wildlife, to talk about what it will take to save salmon from extinction. So please join us. It's going to be Facebook Live. You can RSVP, and we'll, again, leave that link in the comments.
All right. And so if you have been following the George Floyd trials, Herb tells us that they're underway. They started, and the prosecutors are not cutting any slack. So if you want to check that out, that might be something worth checking out too. Just thought I'd pop that in there. We better keep
social
moving.
Justice and social equity. Thanks for that notice, Irv.
Yeah, and so we are going to skip this one because I don't have the visuals on it. And we'll move right on to, let's see, this article comes out of the Spokesman Review that Margo found, and this one's pretty cool. Yeah, the tribes. Oh, what does it say? Tribes, they are reintroducing salmon in the upper Columbia River. That's pretty cool. Is that the same one? Is that...
Looks like it has a different title here, but this is on the front morning, Sunday morning Spokesman Review. I was so excited to see this. Casey Flanagan, netted history. For the second time as many months, Flanagan, a Spokane tribal fish biologist, was bent over large stainless steel cone floating on two pontoons anchored by steel wires to trees onshore. This was Wednesday when she made the discovery. The device is called a screw trap and was bobbing in the frothy spring runoff waters of Shimmikin Creek. And this is in the eastern edge of the Spokane Indian Reservation. 100 yards away, the creek flowed into the Spokane River, just downstream from Long Lake. The creek poured through the cone, spinning fins like a large cake mixer. But instead of mixing dough, the device shunts any fish, insects, or debris into the water, the holding tank. So yeah, some great photos. You know, our tribal communities have scientists that are working really hard to introduce salmon. And we found some of these little baby hatchlings, if you call them smelt. I don't know what the super exact word. The fish biologists are going to kill me. But yeah, you know, we've been fighting hard to protect Shimmikin Creek. You know, Jeff, I was in federal court along with Shannon Work on the water adjudication issues, and constantly our non-native neighbors are damming up Shimmikin Creek, and they run roads across it at their convenience. But this is a living, vital water body that we are working to introduce salmon, and that's good for everybody. Clean water, fast, cold running water.
Yeah, that is good. Yeah, so we'll keep an eye out on that. I did want to, this one picture here, they are putting tags into the smelt, into the babies, so they can track them and where they're going and how far they go out and when they come back. And yeah, they got them all chipped up. They're ready to roll. So that's neat that they're coming back. I know they reintroduced out there before, and to see that they're coming back is really inspiring. So we'll definitely have to keep an eye on that. There's movements on the Snake River to remove the dams. That has a lot of momentum right now, and there's movements on the Columbia to help improve the salmon runs. And yeah, our hands are raised to all those guys. Really, it's been a long time, 80 years in the making, and so to be able to see this is really exciting. So
well, and as you mentioned, or when we were discussing this, Jeff, Shimmikin Creek, it's a tributary that hasn't been clear cutted. It has some, you know, one of the important things our scientists look for is habitat. And we do lots of habitat restoration, trying to save the salmon and the, you know, the locations that they need to spawn and to procreate. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'll give you a good example of this. Latah, you know, all along Latah going all the way on up into Idaho. They had clear cut all of that and created farmland. And when they did that, not only did it remove the shading that kept the water cool, but it also allowed that runoff to just go right into the water without having those natural barriers along the water to keep the pesticides and fertilizer and stuff out of the water. So it's really neat to see that this is where they're going back to, because that area has not, like you said, been clear cutted.
Yeah. So yeah, and with that farming land, you know, when we know better, we need to do better to protect our salmon and our waters.
Yeah, and so moving right along, we have this article here: ancient forest on ancestral lands possess Biden's biggest test yet on indigenous rights, climate change, and environment. So this particular article came out of this is by Rick Bass, and this is a guest opinion piece. It's pretty extensive, but you can find this one on Native News Online. One might not think of Northwest Montana as the heart of the hostile climate policy inherited from the Trump administration. Keystone XL and Standing Rock are well known in the climate struggle Parthenon, thanks to indigenous people forming the front lines in those struggles. But an unseen world similarly vital exists to the west in the shadows of the ancient inland rainforest. So this is talking about the Yak Valley of northwest Montana's Kootenai National Forest, Once again, the indigenous community is stepping up to defend that which is lost and will impact all of us. Even as President Biden and the U.S. Department of Interior commit to reevaluating climate-busting projects and their effects on endangered species, the U.S. Department of Agriculture is quietly proceeding with projects on public lands which contravene that directive. Of note is the proposed Black Ram timber sale in the KNF. The project has been shaped by a Trump directive to increase public lands logging volume by 40% and avoid environmental impact statements. So they're dodging the EIS on these, and yeah, so they're dodging the EIS on these, and you can't really do that and expect any kind of long-term plans to pan out. You have to be able to do these in-depth studies and understand everybody. And in this particular case, the grizzly bears are stakeholders. They want to know what's going on. They deserve to know what's happening to their natural habitat. The indigenous communities in the area recognize and understand that, and also are stepping up. It'll be interesting to see what they end up doing with this. At the heart of the dispute at Black Ram is an ancient forest of 300-year-old spruce and giant 600-year-old larch, the country's oldest deciduous conifer. The forest on the U.S.-Canada border is a climatological marvel. Say that fast. Woo! Climatological marvel, with large sections showing no evidence of ever having burned, able somewhat to repel cyclical waves of wildfire that have shaped the rest of the forest. Black Ram is part of 315,000 contiguous acres being managed without an EIS, despite there being as few as 20 endangered grizzly bears remaining in the valley. Its progress to see a directive to keep oil and gas in the ground on public lands, but how does that square with bulldozing the greatest single reservoir of CO2 absorption in the public portfolio? As Bill McKibben noted astutely in a recent New Yorker article, logging ancient forests like Black Ram undercuts our climate authority abroad. And for what? Each year, the U.S. Forest Service runs a $2 billion deficit. So let me repeat that again. Each year, the U.S. Forest Service, the USFS, runs a $2 billion deficit. It must be remembered that logging on public lands accounts for less than 3% of our domestic timber supply. $2 billion deficit accounts for less than 3%, infringing on these grizzly bears and their turf.
Right.
You know, is it worth it? It doesn't look like it, not at all, especially if you're going to take out these 300 and 600-year-old trees that are the largest CO2 absorption reservoirs in our country.
You know, Jeff, we have some good environmental laws on the books. NEPA, the National Environmental Policy Act, and laws that require environmental impact statements. And we do that for a reason. But if people want to circumvent and dodge these requirements, that they can be crafty enough to do that. But it's not the right thing to do, especially when it comes to these important natural resources.
Can you imagine? Well, I don't even, it's hard to imagine, I should say, trying to regrow these trees and the impact that they have on the air and the water, the land, the grizzly bears, to the birds, the bees, and everybody in between. And, to be doing this here and now, I think is just really big steps in the wrong direction.
We criticize other countries for the rainforest, cutting down the rainforest, and all these.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah,
of. Yeah.
We're all pious and righteous in America, but we're doing the same thing. And just recently, Secretary of the Interior, Deborah Haaland, at her confirmation hearings, she was being criticized. One of the senators called her on the carpet for standing up for bears and grizzlies, and he's like, "And what was your intent?" And she goes, "Well, I guess I was just wanting to look out for the bear. I guess I was just thinking about how the bear,
Yeah.
We're not the only creatures on this earth."
Yeah, and we all have needs that we need to survive, and we've already lost thousands of species that will never return. Some of them are vital to our ecosystem, and it's tough tough to watch this all playing out. But hopefully we'll keep an eye on this, and hopefully they'll be able to put an end to that. Dodging the EIS is one thing, but being the administration that allows that to continue, they can change that if they want. Even though it was approved once, doesn't mean it's always going to have to be that way. And especially, you just go over to the coast. If you want something, just look at the clear cutting. You can see it from Google Maps. You can literally see the clear cutting from space. That was done over there decades ago and has still never been replanted. Yeah. And unfortunately, there's several tribes over there lost those old growth forests, and with the promise of replanting. They've never been replanted, and it just looks devastating over there. And that's their huge carbon. They help reintroduce the carbon into the. We'll take it out of the air.
Yeah, some of the big legal cases on clear cutting was the Quinault Nation and the Mitchell cases, and these logging companies come in and they just clear cut and they don't restore the habitat. They leave these big piles of debris, and it's just hurtful for the environment. Yeah, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. So moving right along, we have a story here on HUD and the impact, the $450 million. So again, we see that Arizona tribes get $88 million for housing in the COVID relief bill. Tribes in Arizona will get another $88 million in housing grants, the most of any state, from $450 million in tribal housing assistance released Thursday by the Department of Housing and Urban Development. The national funding, which included the American Rescue Plan, will come in addition to the 651 million tribes across the nation, and they are already scheduled to get fiscal 2021 under the annual Indian Housing Block Grant. So we see that the Arizona tribes share the grant. The share of the grant rose from the original 128 to 216 million, with extra funds for the pandemic relief law. HUD Secretary Marcia Fudge called the $450 million a historic investment in tribal housing. Nearly 600 tribal communities from across the country will benefit from this funding, which will go towards housing development, housing modernization, housing services, and family and creative approaches to provide more affordable Indian housing in Indian country. Jeff, housing is one of the social determinants of health. And it really, when folks are overcrowded, of course, we've seen that with the spread of the COVID virus, but it's hard to raise a family and when housing isn't available. It's just the unique status of our trust lands that banks don't rush out to loan us money, and construction companies aren't in our communities to build the houses. So this will be a start. This is an investment in Indian country. It is, and I think it's a great investment. It's something that's long overdue. Some of the tribes have houses that haven't been upgraded since the 60s and 70s, and you have third, fourth, fifth generations being raised in them, and a lot of them have radon, they have asbestos, they have all sorts of stuff in there. So this is really good to see. And that story came to us, we found that in Indian country today, but it came out of Cronkite News, and Molly Hudson did a good job reporting on that. So our very last story here, I was hoping you would cover this because it's one that you pulled out for us, and I thought it's just... And you can't pronounce the Indian word? And I can't pronounce the Indian word. The Poyaki Pueblo, man, in Biden's White House. So I'm so excited to share that, through the magic of digital communication, Paui Rivera appears on the computer screen. Youthful but not boyish, hip but not hipster. Refreshingly, despite his surrounding, he comes off as neither bland or a bland technician or a slick politician, just a young man from Poyaki Pueblo who got one hell of a business card, right? His specific role, which is a mouthful, the Senior Advisor and Tribal Affairs Director in the White House Office of Intergovernmental Affairs, Rivera said. So a fancy title, and definitely one that can be challenging to say, but in Washington, D.C., we see the twists of the tongue and the coin in the realm. The bigger the title, the closer to the levers of power. So Rivera, who's just 29, he's in at an important intersection at an important time, working in this U.S. government at a moment where Native problems and Native potential have never seemed so great. So we're excited that he has been appointed to this role by the Biden administration on the day a new president was inaugurated. Rivera said his job is to support Indian country and make certain tribes and pueblos are heard as the administration begins to unravel and unpack all this damage that was done during the coronavirus pandemic and Native communities throughout the country. So it's just a start. The needs of Native communities, just don't begin and end with the coronavirus. The issues are similar to those, just about every part of America. It's just more acute and often. And so it's not easily understood, the problems we have in Indian country.
No.
So great appointment. We're excited to see the senior advisor to the White House. One of our own is going to be helping drive the issues.
Yeah, and this article came out of the Santa Fe, New Mexican. I think they did a really good job with it, and we're definitely going to have to keep an eye on the progress. It's one of those things where it's baby steps, little by little. We gradually get a grip on what's going on, and it's all throughout the country, not just in Indian country, but all throughout the country. A little bit of representation here, and just getting a seat at the table is a start. And as we've seen here in Spokane over the last few years, can have lasting effects, so it's pretty exciting stuff. Anyhow, I think we're about out of time, so
that's our time. Again, if you have stories and ideas, please let us know. I know Dale Sebastian sent me a video right before we went on air, so we'll get that on Wednesday. And lots of issues going on in Indian country, sports and events. People are signing on to colleges. It's an exciting time. And I know spring baseball is getting started out there. So go out and support your tribal athletes. We're happy to cover the stories. Just let us know.
All right.
Thank
you. Lem Lemch.